I want you to imagine, just for a moment, losing absolutely everything.
Like completely everything, overnight.
Exactly. I am talking about your home, your marriage, your social standing, the bank accounts that you rely on to feed your family.
Yeah.
All of it just wiped out in a matter of days.
It is an incredibly terrifying scenario to put yourself in.
Right. And as a result of this staggering collapse, you find yourself holding the keys to a dead hoarder's apartment.
Oh, wow.
And this apartment is located inside a luxury 55 and up condo community. It is pretty much the last place you ever thought you would be.
Absolutely.
Oh, and right as you were trying to navigate the sheer panic of this bizarre new reality, you immediately become entangled in a 21-year-old cold case murder.
Because of course you do.
Right. It sounds like an absolute nightmare, doesn't it? Well, that is precisely the labyrinth we are stepping into today.
It is a phenomenal premise. It really grabs you right from the initial setup and forces you to ask how you would survive if the ground just vanished from beneath your feet.
Which brings us to our audio output overview. The source material for our deep dive today is a stack of brilliant excerpts from a novel.
And it is a fantastic one.
It really is. Specifically, we are exploring the intricate, multi-layered mystery within the pages of the book The Primrose Murder Society by Stacy Hackney.
Such a great title, too.
Yeah. Our mission is to unpack this story, following a disgraced mother and her true crime-obsessed 10-year-old daughter.
I love that dynamic.
Me too.
No?
And we follow them as they team up with an eccentric cast of elderly residents to solve not one, but two murders.
When you look closely at the source material, you realize this isn't merely a puzzle box or a standard whodunit.
Right.
It serves as a rather sharp examination of social class. It dissects the lengths that affluent families will go to in order to protect their reputations.
Which is a huge theme here.
Exactly, while simultaneously exploring the unexpected places where we end up finding our genuine community.
So keep that feeling of being underestimated or discarded in mind, because that is the exact emotional starting line for our protagonist, Lila Shaw.
Yeah, she starts at absolute rock bottom.
Let's look at where Lila is when the story opens.
Yeah.
She is 35 years old, and her life has just imploded in the most spectacular public way imaginable.
She is navigating the catastrophic fallout created by her husband, Ryan. He was indicted on massive fraud charges by the Justice Department.
And he didn't stick around to face the music.
No, he did not. Instead of facing those charges, Ryan chose to flee the country. He packed his bags 7 months ago and just vanished,
Leaving her holding the bag.
leaving Lila penniless, legally entangled, and universally ostracized by the wealthy Richmond, Virginia society she used to call home.
It's brutal. She is bearing the immense weight of his crimes, despite being totally oblivious to his fraudulent activities.
The isolation she experiences in those early chapters is palpable. She is a total pariah.
Yeah, and the inciting incident that forces her out of her remaining comfort zone happens at her daughter's school.
We absolutely need to talk about A.
Oh, B is an unforgettable character. She is Lila's 10-year-old daughter. She is tiny, fierce, unapologetic, and harbors a deep, deep obsession with reruns of murder, she wrote.
Which is so funny for a 10-year-old.
It really is. And she also insists on wearing her fugitive father's oversized stained Atlanta Braves t-shirt everywhere she goes.
B's character construction is brilliant. I mean,
Ah.
she is actively processing a massive, multi-tiered trauma.
Right, she lost her dad.
She has lost her father, her financial stability, and her place in the world. But instead of crumbling, she channels her anxiety into defiance.
And to Jessica Fletcher.
Exactly, into a rigid obsession with justice, which she absorbs from watching Jessica Fletcher solve crimes on television. It gives her a sense of control in a world that is spiraling.
And that need for control bubbles over at her school, the prestigious Merit Academy. B gets called into the head of school's office.
Because she threw a book.
Yes, she threw a paperback book directly at a classmate named Jackson. When Lila arrives, she's frantic, right? She's trying to smooth things over by claiming it was just an accident.
Yeah.
But B refuses to play along.
She owns it completely.
She flat out states that she meant to throw it because Jackson was being a jerk. And her defense is phenomenal. She says, I wasn't trying to bludgeon him to death.
It is a direct humorous reference to the bludgeonings she watches on her detective shows.
Yeah, but the head of the school didn't find it funny.
Not at all. For Mrs. Givens, the school head, it is the final straw. B is expelled.
And the timing is just devastating. This expulsion occurs on the very same day Layla's lawyer calls with the worst possible news.
The house.
Yeah. A judge has approved the government's seizure of their home. They have to vacate immediately.
They hit rock bottom simultaneously. And the author, Stacy Hackney, illustrates this brutal fall from grace during a very specific interaction in the school hallway.
Oh, the scene with Amy Marshall.
Yes. Lila is exhausted. She's wearing sweatpants and a pilled sweater, and she runs into Amy Marshall.
The head of the PTA.
Right. And Amy is standing there in a $1,400 outfit, golden goose sneakers, an Alex of Bohemia dress.
A very specific wealthy uniform.
Exactly. And Amy just verbally eviscerates Lila. She looks her in the eye and tells her that everyone assumed she was involved in her husband's fraud.
Which is so cruel.
She calls her pathetic and makes it clear that polite society never wants to see her again.
That interaction strips away the veneer of high society friendships. It demonstrates how highly conditional those relationships are.
Very conditional.
When you possess wealth and status, you are indispensable to the charity committees and the book clubs.
But the moment scandal touches you,
You become radioactive. Lila had defined her entire identity around being Ryan's wife and a Merit Academy mother. Without those labels, she is just left floating in a void.
So, with nowhere else to turn, and the government literally locking her doors, Lila makes a desperate phone call to her mother.
And her mother's current boyfriend, Stanley, happens to own an empty apartment in a historic Richmond building called the Primrose.
Which is an upscale 55 and up condo building.
Stanley offers Lila a deal. She can stay there rent-free for 2 months, provided she cleans it out so he can put it on the market.
Seems like a lifeline.
It does. And when Lila and Bee pull up to the Primrose, it looks like a sanctuary. Rose-colored brick, cream stone trim, crystal chandeliers illuminating the lobby.
Gold damask wallpaper.
Yeah. It projects an aura of absolute safety and luxury.
The facade is pristine, which makes the reality of the interior that much more jarring.
Because they take the elevator up to the second floor?
Apartment 2B.
Right. They unlock the door and they step into a waking nightmare.
The previous owner was Stanley's mother, Gloria, and Gloria was a severe hoarder.
The apartment is packed from the floorboards to the ceiling with absolute junk.
We are talking about expired Campbell's soup cans.
Disturbing collections of disembodied doll heads.
And towering, unstable stacks of old newspapers.
The sensory details of that hoarder apartment are incredibly visceral in the source material. You can almost smell the stagnant air and the decay.
For Lila, it is the physical manifestation of her ruined life. She is hyperventilating. She feels like a profound failure as a mother for bringing her child into this hazardous environment.
But Bee has a remarkably different reaction.
She always does.
While Lila's breaking down, Bee is practically vibrating with excitement.
Because she did a quick internet search on her phone.
Yes, and she discovered that the Primrose is the site of a famous unsolved murder.
Bee's pivot here really drives the narrative forward. Her true crime obsession suddenly manifests a real-world application.
She is totally unfazed by the garbage.
Or the dull heads. Or the fact that they're living in a retirement community. She sees a mystery, and a mystery offers a distraction from her own painful reality.
Let's delve into the backstory of that mystery. We have to rewind 21 years to the fall of 2002.
At that time, the Primrose was plagued by a string of unsolved burglaries.
Right. And during a lavish, building-wide cocktail party, a 16-year-old girl named Sophia Kent was brutally murdered up in her grandfather's penthouse.
Her grandfather was Conrad Kent, one of the wealthiest, most influential men in the state of Virginia.
The official theory put forward by the police was a botched robbery.
The assumption was that the burglar believed the penthouse was empty because everyone was downstairs at the party.
Makes sense.
Sophia supposedly surprised the intruder, and in a panic, the burglar grabbed a knife from the kitchen block and stabbed her.
And the killer slipped away, the trail went cold, and the case just sat dormant for over 2 decades.
The catalyst that pulls this cold case into the present day happens shortly after Lila and Bee move into the hoarder apartment.
Conrad Kent, the powerful grandfather, passes away.
And his lawyer, James Forrester, convenes an emergency meeting in the building's opulent azalea room.
The entire resident population gathers. They're drinking wine, gossiping, and Forrester makes an astonishing announcement.
Conrad Kent established a trust before he died, offering a $2 million reward.
$2 million.
To anyone inside the building who can provide information that leads to the arrest of Sophia's killer.
Injecting $2 million into a closed ecosystem like a condo building fundamentally alters the social dynamics.
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly, neighbors who have played cards together for 20 years are side-eyeing one another.
Wondering what secrets are being hidden, or plotting how they might claim the fortune themselves.
And for B, it is the ultimate motivator. $2 million is a tangible solution to their ruin. It represents a house, stability, and an end to her mother's suffering.
She immediately declares that they are going to find the killer,
And she forms a makeshift investigation team.
which is arguably one of the most endearing and effective amateur detective squads in recent fiction. Joining Lila and B are two elderly neighbors.
First, there's Jasper.
Jasper presents as a timid, soft-spoken man who constantly bakes incredible pastries for the building.
But beneath that gentle exterior, he is a retired property crimes detective who spent decades with the Richmond Police Department.
Jasper is the procedural anchor for the group. He understands how to navigate bureaucracy.
He knows how to request files using the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, which allows citizens to compel the government to release unclassified documents.
He knows how to interpret old police reports, but his profound shyness keeps him from really taking charge.
That is where Evelyn steps in.
Oh, Evelyn. She is a wealthy, pearl-wearing socialite with a domineering personality and a self-proclaimed genius-level IQ.
She is ruthless, she's observant, and she refuses to mince words.
I find Evelyn's justification for joining the investigation absolutely fascinating. She doesn't need the money at all. She just has an unwavering belief in her own superiority.
Her quote is fantastic. She tells them, "I'm certain I could sniff out any murderer. No one likes to believe children are capable of evil. Obviously, I know better. It's why I don't trust the young."
It perfectly establishes her worldview. But if we step back and analyze the composition of this investigative team, it reveals a really profound thematic point.
You have a disgraced, financially ruined mother, a 10-year-old girl, a timid, retired man, and an abrasive elderly woman.
In modern society, these are four demographics that are routinely ignored, dismissed, or patronized.
They are functionally invisible.
Yet, that exact invisibility makes them the perfect amateur sleuths. Suspects let their guard down around them. People speak freely because they do not view them as a threat.
And that dynamic pays off almost immediately. Their very first major breakthrough comes directly from the hoarding mess in apartment 2B.
Right. While Lila is slowly digging through the mountains of junk, she discovers that Gloria, the previous owner, was deeply paranoid.
Gloria rarely left her apartment, but she kept meticulously detailed spy journals.
Logging the exact movements of every single resident she can observe from her window and her people.
From an investigative standpoint, a hyper-vigilant shut-in with a notebook is a goldmine. Gloria essentially provided time-stamped surveillance logs for the building.
They locate the specific journal covering the day of the murder in 2002. Gloria noted that at 2:30 p.m., she observed a suspicious figure wearing a ski mask exit apartment 2D, enter the stairwell, and walk up the stairs.
The direction is a critical detail. By walking up the stairs from the second floor, the individual is moving deeper into the building.
And the Primrose utilizes restricted access keycards for the elevators and stairwells.
Exactly. You cannot access higher floors from the stairwell without a resident keycard programmed for those floors.
That single journal entry shatters the police theory of an external break-in. It proves the burglar, and presumably the murderer, lived inside the building.
Think about the psychological weight of that realization. If you learned that someone living down the hall from you had brutally stabbed a teenager and gotten away with it for 20 years, how would you react?
Would you start asking questions, or would you lock your door?
The murder club decides to go on the offensive.
They start systematically interrogating their neighbors. And the resident pool is a treasure trove of eccentric, deeply flawed individuals.
You have the Willoughby sisters, June and Iris, whose entire existence revolves around playing canasta, drinking, and spreading malicious gossip.
Then there is Florence, the self-appointed building sommelier, and Brock Anderson, a disgraced retired banker whose behavior borders on predatory.
The author constructs a brilliant microcosm of elite society within the building. It is insular, heavily dependent on established social hierarchies, and rife with long-held grudges.
As they peel back the layers of polite society, they realize that everyone is hiding something.
Which brings us to the suspects, because as they dig, the pristine, tragic image of the victim, Sophia Kent, begins to fracture.
The first major suspect they investigate is Emily Canterbury. She's a bitter, fragile-seeming woman living on the 5th floor, directly next door to the penthouse where the murder occurred.
Emily is a fascinating character study in resentment. When Lila and Jasper manage to speak with her, Emily does not bother hiding her contempt for the dead girl.
She actively deconstructs the narrative that Sophia was a perfect, innocent angel.
Emily points out her failing grades, her falsified charity hours, and the fact that the Kent family wealth insulated Sophia from any real consequences.
The motive becomes crystal clear when Lila interviews Susanna Moore. Susanna is the current building manager at the Primrose, but back in high school, she was Sophia's best friend.
Susanna reveals a dark secret. Emily Canterbury used to be an English teacher at their prestigious private school.
And just days before the murder, Sophia caught Emily having an illicit affair with an 18-year-old student named Jeremy.
Sophia reported the affair to Jeremy's parents.
The fallout from that revelation was catastrophic for Emily. She was immediately terminated, her teaching career was permanently destroyed, and her husband filed for divorce.
Her entire life was dismantled by Sophia's actions.
And where was Emily on the night of the cocktail party?
She was living with her ailing mother in the apartment right next door to the penthouse.
It provides her with access, opportunity, and an overwhelming, intensely personal motive for revenge.
But the suspect list doesn't end there. We have to look closely at Susanna Moore herself.
The best friend.
She might have been Sophia's best friend, but another resident reveals that Susanna harbored a deep, secret infatuation with that same student, Jeremy.
So when Sophia exposed the affair, resulting in Jeremy being sent away to boarding school, Susanna was heartbroken.
And that heartbreak curdled into rage, culminating in a physical altercation where Susanna punched Sophia in the face shortly before the murder.
The inclusion of Susanna highlights the volatile nature of teenage friendships, especially when complicated by romantic jealousy and proximity to wealth.
Susanna has spent 20 years managing the building where her friend was killed, displaying an incredibly rigid and defensive demeanor. Could a confrontation between the two girls have escalated to lethal violence?
It is a highly plausible theory.
The investigation then pivots to the financial side of things, bringing suspect number 3 into the crosshairs. Brock Anderson, the retired banker.
Lila realizes she needs to figure out how Brock fits into the puzzle, but he is notoriously tight-lipped, so she takes a massive personal risk.
She pulls her very last designer dress, a Provenza Scholler, out of a garment bag, puts it on, and agrees to accompany Brock to a dinner at his exclusive country club.
Her goal is to run a classic honey trap, pouring him glass after glass of expensive wine to loosen his tongue.
It is a dangerous but effective tactic. Brock's judgment is heavily impaired, and he lets slip a crucial piece of information.
He reveals that Sophia was not just acting out. She was in serious trouble.
She had developed a severe drug habit and was deeply in debt to a local dealer.
Brock knew this because Conrad Kent, utilizing his vast resources, had quietly paid Brock to manipulate certain banking records to cover up Sophia's financial hemorrhaging.
The financial records at the Primrose tell an even darker story. When Lila manages to review the HOA accounting ledgers, she notices a glaring anomaly.
Brock Anderson was thousands of dollars in debt to the Homeowners Association and was facing imminent foreclosure on his condo.
But in November 2002, immediately following the string of burglaries and Sophia's death, his massive debt was suddenly paid off in full.
It begs the question, was Brock the ski-masked burglar? Or was he paid a substantial sum to remain silent about what he knew regarding the murder?
The sudden influx of cash is incredibly suspicious. But the revelation regarding Sophia's drug debt leads the team to suspect number 4.
And this is where the investigation threatens to tear the murder club apart, because the prime suspect becomes Teddy Harrison.
Who happens to be Evelyn's own son.
Precisely. Teddy is a quintessential trust fund child. He fancies himself a musician, but lacks any real ambition, surviving entirely on his family's wealth.
Lila uncovers a witness statement from another resident, Mary Dixon. Mary vividly recalls looking out her window on the night of the murder and seeing Teddy aggressively chasing Sophia through the woods behind the building.
Looking enraged and highly intoxicated.
Confronting Evelyn with this information is a delicate maneuver.
Very delicate. But when Lila presses her, Evelyn's abrasive exterior finally cracks. She breaks down and confesses a horrifying reality.
Teddy was the one supplying Sophia with cocaine.
Sophia had racked up a massive debt, and Teddy's own suppliers were threatening him with violence if he didn't produce the money.
On the night of the cocktail party, Sophia told Teddy she was going upstairs to retrieve the cash from a secret source.
Teddy, panicking and out of patience, didn't believe her and chased her into the building.
This specific subplot brilliantly underscores the theme of aristocratic narrative control. The Kent family, and particularly the grandfather, knew perfectly well that Sophia had a massive amount of cocaine in her system when she died.
But rather than allowing the police to follow that lead, they used their immense influence to suppress the toxicology report.
They kept it out of the press and off the public record to protect the sacred Kent family legacy. Their obsession with optics actively hindered the pursuit of justice.
That cover-up ties directly back to a cryptic clue provided by the gossiping Willoughby sisters.
They claimed they overheard Sophia on a payphone the day she died, crying and saying, "I can never pay back what I've taken. He's coming for me."
This forces Lila to reevaluate the entire dynamic. Was Sophia being blackmailed by someone who knew her secrets?
Or, even more sinister, was Sophia the one blackmailing the Primrose burglar, demanding a cut of the stolen goods so she could pay off her drug debt to Teddy?
The author weaves a masterful web of overlapping motives and red herrings. Almost every prominent resident in that luxury building is harboring a devastating secret.
And they are all actively prioritizing their own self-preservation over finding justice for a murdered 16-year-old girl.
But poking around in decades-old secrets carries a severe risk. Amateur sleuthing feels like a game until the killer realizes you are getting dangerously close to the truth.
And that brings us to a terrifying shift in the narrative.
The timeline snaps from a dusty 21-year-old cold case into a lethal present-day crisis.
The stakes escalate exponentially. Emily Canterbury, the bitter former teacher, makes a fatal decision.
She leaves a voicemail for James Forrester, the trust lawyer overseeing the $2 million reward.
In the message, she explicitly states that she finally knows the identity of Sophia Kent's killer and intends to claim the money.
But she never gets the opportunity to reveal the name. Forrester drives to the Primrose to meet her, finds her apartment door slightly ajar, and walks into the living room to find Emily dead on the floor.
She has been shot twice in the chest, and because none of the neighbors heard a thing, it is highly probable the killer used a silencer.
The introduction of a firearm and a silenced execution fundamentally changes the genre of the story. It moves from a cozy mystery into a tense thriller.
And the most devastating twist is that Lila instantly becomes the prime suspect in Emily's murder.
The circumstantial evidence against Lila is damning. Earlier that exact same day, Lila had baked blueberry muffins and left them at Emily's door.
Along with a handwritten note apologizing for bothering her and asking to discuss an urgent personal matter, she just wanted to ask a few more questions about Sophia.
But when the police process the crime scene, they find that specific note stuffed directly into the pocket of Emily's clothing.
The situation worsens when the lead investigator arrives. Detective Craig Roberts is assigned to the case.
Jasper, relying on his years in the department, warns Lila that Roberts is notoriously lazy and cynical. He doesn't look for the truth. He looks for the path of least resistance.
Roberts aggressively zeroes in on Lila. He constructs a motive out of thin air, claiming that Emily was trying to have Lila and B evicted from the building, and Lila killed her to prevent them from becoming homeless again.
The psychological terror of this situation is compounded that very night. While Lila and B are asleep in the hoarder apartment, someone silently unlocks their door and breaks in.
They don't harm them physically, but the intruder steals the Primrose HOA accounting records right off the dining room table.
The terrifying realization washes over Lila. The killer has a master key, and they can get to her and her daughter at any time.
We must analyze the severe psychological toll this inflicts on Lila. She is already suffering from complex, untreated PTSD stemming from her husband's crimes.
She spent months trapped in sterile FBI interrogation rooms, enduring relentless questioning by agents who refused to believe she was innocent.
Now, she is right back in that suffocating environment, facing a murder charge with zero alibi. The isolation is absolute.
And her most paralyzing visceral fear is not prison. It is the certainty that if she is arrested, B will be swallowed up by the state foster care system.
It is a suffocating corner to be backed into. You have a single mother framed for a professional execution, a killer who can bypass her locks, and a detective who is aggressively building a case against her.
In a desperate bid for an ally, Lila approaches Helene Kent, Sophia's mother, assuming the family would want the truth exposed.
But Helene's reaction is chilling. She coldly threatens to use her power to have Lila thrown out on the street if she doesn't stop digging into Sophia's past.
It is the ultimate confirmation that high society will always protect its image over uncovering the truth, even when the victim is their own flesh and blood.
Yet, amid all this darkness, B's reaction to the danger is a fascinating character study in resilience.
While Lila is paralyzed by anxiety, B uses the proximity to murder to elevate her social standing at her new elementary school.
She forms an official detective club and regales the popular kids with dark, detailed stories about seeing the police wheel Emily's body bag out of the building.
It is a darkly comedic, coping mechanism, but it provides Lila with the crucial motivation she needs. She realizes she cannot simply hide. She must clear her name.
And Lila deduces that the only way to prove her innocence in Emily's present-day murder is to definitively solve Sophia's 21-year-old murder.
And prove to the police that the two cases are inextricably linked by the same killer. That leads us into the final act.
The puzzle pieces start coming together, beginning with Jasper utilizing his old police contacts to locate a shady antique dealer named Lionel Garrett.
Jasper completely discards his timid neighbor persona for this confrontation. He visits Lila Shaw and uses his physical presence and knowledge of the law to intimidate the dealer.
He threatens to completely ruin Lionel's business unless he identifies the person who sold him the stolen goods from the 2002 Primrose burglaries.
Lionel caves. He admits he bought a stolen heron octopus figurine from a woman. He couldn't see her face because the transaction occurred in a dimly lit parking garage.
But he noticed two distinct details. Her car sported a Primrose resident parking decal, and she had a very specific birthmark on her inner forearm shaped like a four-leaf clover.
A four-leaf clover birthmark. It is a brilliant, undeniable physical identifier, but it presents a logistical nightmare.
How do you inspect the inner forearms of every wealthy, guarded, elderly woman in a luxury condominium without immediately tipping off the killer?
This is where Evelyn's manipulative brilliance takes center stage. They concoct a scheme that preys entirely on the vanity and greed of the residents.
They organize a fake luxury jewelry show in the elegant Azalea Room. They hire a local high-end jewelry designer to display expensive pieces, offering a complimentary custom fitting for anyone interested.
To ensure a perfect fit, the designer is instructed to use a tape measure and physically measure the bare wrists and forearms of every woman in attendance.
It is an incredibly tense sequence. Lila standing there, holding her breath, watching sleeves get rolled up one by one.
She checks Florence. Nothing. She checks Mary Dixon. Nothing. She checks Helene Kent. Nothing.
And then Ruth Baylor steps up to the table.
Ruth is the heavily hairsprayed, incredibly self-righteous president of the Primrose Board. She is the woman who has been judging and looking down on Lila since the day she arrived.
Ruth rolls up her sleeve, and there it is, the four-leaf clover birthmark.
The confrontation that follows is a masterclass in social warfare. They pull Ruth into a private side room. Ruth attempts to maintain her haughty, authoritative demeanor, but Evelyn systematically dismantles her.
Evelyn stares her down and delivers a devastating threat. She says, "I chaired the Children's Hospital Ball for 5 years. Do you really think I don't have any clout in this town? Women may not like me, but they will believe me."
She promises to completely obliterate Ruth's social standing in Richmond if she doesn't confess.
And Ruth shatters under the pressure. She breaks down and confesses that she was the cat burglar in 2002. She was stealing from her wealthy neighbors to fund a lifestyle she couldn't actually afford.
However, she vehemently, hysterically denies having anything to do with Sophia's death. In her desperation to prove her innocence, Ruth drops the final, massive bombshell of the investigation.
She explains that on the night of the cocktail party, she was sneaking back into the building after fencing some stolen jewelry. To avoid being seen, she hid in the dense bushes outside the stairwell's side exit.
And just as the murder was supposedly taking place upstairs, Ruth saw someone sneaking out of that exit looking frantic.
And that person was Helene Kent, Sophia's own mother.
The revelation flips the entire case upside down. Lila, Jasper, and Evelyn don't wait for the police. They immediately take the elevator up to the penthouse to confront Helene.
And Helene doesn't bother denying it. The facade drops entirely. She calmly walks over to a mahogany desk, retrieves a handgun, and aims it directly at them.
She is fully prepared to execute all three of them and stage the scene as a murder-suicide, framing Lila to ensure her family's dark secret remains buried forever.
The tension in that penthouse is suffocating. But it is in this high-stakes moment that Lila finally pieces together the most elusive clue of the entire mystery: the shoes.
Throughout the narrative, Sophia's younger sister Alice has mentioned that Sophia was going through a rebellious grunge phase. She lived in a pair of scuffed Dr. Martens boots, and she was planning to attend a rock concert on the night she died.
Yet the official crime scene photographs showed Sophia's body laid out, wearing a pair of pristine Chanel pumps.
It is the detail that unravels the lie. Lila realizes that Helene physically removed the Dr. Martens from her dead daughter's feet and replaced them with the Chanel pumps.
Why would a mother do that? Because the boots were covered in blood that did not belong to Sophia. The blood belonged to Conrad Kent, the grandfather.
The truth behind the 21-year-old mystery is a profound tragedy, rooted in privilege and a fatal lack of accountability.
Months prior to the murder, Sophia had attended an illicit teenage party on the jagged cliffs situated behind the condo building.
She engaged in a drunken, heated argument with another girl named Melanie Livingston. The argument turned physical. Sophia shoved Melanie, and Melanie tragically fell backward off the cliff to her death.
It was a horrific accident. But instead of calling the authorities, Sophia confessed to her grandfather. Conrad Kent, utilizing his vast wealth and political connections, systematically covered it up.
He paid people off, buried the evidence, and shielded Sophia from any legal consequences to protect the pristine Kent legacy.
But the psychological burden of carrying that secret was destroying Sophia. That is why she turned to heavy drug use. That is why she was crying on the payphone, saying she could never pay back what she had taken. The guilt was eroding her sanity.
On the night of the cocktail party, that guilt finally reached a boiling point. Sophia went up to the penthouse and confronted Conrad. She told him she couldn't live with the lie anymore and was going to the police to confess to Melanie's death.
Conrad panicked. The idea of his granddaughter going to prison and the family name being dragged through the mud was unacceptable. A physical struggle ensued.
During the chaotic scuffle, a knife was grabbed from the kitchen counter. And in the tragic chaos of the struggle, the blade accidentally severed the brachial artery in Sophia's arm.
It was not a premeditated murder. It was a fatal, catastrophic accident born from a desperate attempt to maintain control. Sophia bled out rapidly on the penthouse floor.
Conrad sustained a defensive wound during the struggle, bleeding onto Sophia's boots.
Yeah.
At that exact moment, Helene walked into the penthouse and witnessed the horrific scene.
And this is where the true darkness of the aristocracy is revealed. Faced with her bleeding father-in-law and her dying daughter, Helene's immediate instinct was not to call an ambulance.
Her instinct was to protect the family empire. She quickly bandaged Conrad's arm and sent him down to the cocktail party to establish an airtight alibi surrounded by witnesses.
Helene then remained in the blood-soaked penthouse to stage the crime scene. She stripped the bloody boots off her daughter to hide Conrad's DNA and shoved the Chanel pumps onto her feet.
She purposefully ransacked the luxurious room, knocking over furniture and scattering valuables to fabricate the narrative of a botched burglary.
Finally, Helene stepped out into the hallway and let out a piercing, blood-curdling scream, knowing the bedridden elderly woman in the adjacent apartment would hear it and dial 911, thereby establishing the exact timeline Helene needed for the police.
It was a meticulously executed cover-up, but Helene made one fatal miscalculation. Emily Canterbury, the disgraced teacher whose life had been ruined by Sophia, was living in that adjacent apartment, caring for her mother.
When Emily heard the commotion, she looked through the peephole of her door and clearly saw Helene Kent sneaking away from the scene before the police arrived.
Emily possessed the ultimate leverage. For 21 years, Emily Canterbury systematically blackmailed the incredibly wealthy Kent family. She lived a comfortable life of leisure, her silence purchased by Helene's quiet, steady payments.
But when Conrad died and the trust lawyer announced the staggering $2 million reward, Emily's greed overpowered her caution. She decided she wanted the massive lump sum instead of the steady trickle of blackmail money. She made the call to turn Helene in.
Helene immediately recognized that her decades of deception were about to collapse. Her family would be ruined, and Conrad's legacy destroyed.
So Helene procured a silenced pistol, walked down the hall to Emily's apartment, and executed her with 2 shots to the chest. To ensure she got away with it, Helene deliberately stole the note Lila had left at the door and planted it in Emily's pocket, framing the vulnerable new resident as a convenient scapegoat.
The sheer calculation is chilling.
Yeah.
And as Helene is holding Lila, Jasper, and Evelyn at gunpoint, preparing to kill them to maintain the lie, the confrontation is abruptly interrupted.
Alice Kent, Sophia's younger sister, walks into the penthouse. She has been standing in the entryway, listening to the entire confession.
Alice is profoundly heartbroken. She realizes in that moment that her entire life of privilege, her family's pristine reputation, and their vast wealth were entirely constructed on a foundation of blood, lies, and the covered-up deaths of her sister and a girl named Melanie.
Seeing the devastation in her surviving daughter's eyes, Helene's resolve finally breaks. She lowers the weapon, realizing the legacy she killed to protect is already ash. The police are called.
The aftermath of this incredible sequence brings us to a deeply satisfying resolution. Helene Kent is formally arrested and charged with the premeditated murder of Emily Canterbury, as well as the extensive, multi-decade cover-up of Sophia's death.
Lila is unequivocally cleared of all charges. Detective Craig Roberts, who tried so aggressively to frame her, is forced to publicly eat crow and drop the case.
But the emotional climax happens between Lila and Alice Kent. Alice requests a meeting with Lila and insists without hesitation that Lila take the full $2 million reward from the Greyhaven Trust.
Jasper and Evelyn, who were instrumental in solving the case, flatly refuse to take a single dime, ensuring that Lila receives the entire fortune.
The influx of wealth obviously changes Lila's material circumstances, but the true victory lies in her profound character arc. She entered this narrative as a woman entirely defined by her husband's success and wealth.
When he fell, she absorbed all of his shame, cowering from the world and accepting the cruel abuse of women like Amy Marshall. By the conclusion of the story, she's a wealthy, fiercely independent woman who faced down a loaded gun, protected her daughter against insurmountable odds, and discovered her own unshakable voice.
She actually becomes a minor local hero in Richmond. And predictably, the superficial fair-weather friends who brutally abandoned her start calling her again, eager to invite her back to their exclusive book clubs and charity galas now that her name is cleared and she has money.
But Lila ignores their calls. She recognizes how profoundly hollow that society truly is.
The thematic irony is striking. The Kent family spent decades manipulating the system, covering up accidents and committing murder, all driven by a desperate, toxic need to maintain their aristocratic image.
And that desperate quest not only destroyed multiple lives, including their own daughters, but ultimately resulted in their complete public humiliation, ruin, and imprisonment.
Conversely, Lila, who had her image and reputation completely destroyed, chose to seek the truth. And with $2 million sitting in the bank, Lila has the financial freedom to live anywhere in the world. She could buy a sprawling mansion in the most exclusive zip code.
But she and Bea make a beautiful choice. They decide to stay right where they are, at the Primrose. The nosy, eccentric, fiercely loyal, elderly residents who help them, they have become their true found family.
It is a poignant resolution that strips away the superficial veneer of high society. It demonstrates that genuine community is not defined by country club memberships, tax brackets, or pristine reputations.
True community is defined by the people who stand shoulder to shoulder with you when the lights go out and the world turns against you.
I think that is the perfect note to end on. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, fascinating question to ponder as you go about your day. We often think of our neighbors as just the random people who happen to share our zip code or our hallway. But if the walls of your building could talk, what long-buried secrets would they tell? And perhaps more importantly, if your entire life completely fell apart tomorrow, who would be standing next to you to help pick up the pieces, the curated acquaintances from your polite society, or the eccentric strangers living right down the hall? Keep questioning the surface of things, everyone. We will see you on the next deep dive.